is the number I've come up with here. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that was fabulous news. I had a lot of fun, and I don't know if anyone else who attended wants to say anything. If anybody else wants to make a comment about the rack winner contest, please go ahead now. VE3YTZ. Go ahead, VE3YTZ. Thank you very much, Tyler. Just a question for Dave. Dave, could you just give us a little bit more granularity on those numbers? What was our most productive band and what was our most productive mode, for example? And the second, I participated in this, and I certainly appreciate all the work that you had gone in to organize this and make it such a success. I had a lot of fun. I'm sure everyone who participated had fun as well. So a big shout out and thank you to you, Dave, for a fine effort. VE3YTZ.
Yeah, well, thanks very much, Greg. Much appreciated. I haven't broken all the figures down, but I've got the raw numbers in front of me, and it looks like 20 meters was the big workhorse on this one, followed by 40, I think. But I can't give you the totals. I don't have those numbers in front of me. And the breakdown, I'd have to dig around. The statistics are actually right in the logging program, but I've got to dig them out, and I haven't done that yet. So, sorry, I don't have those numbers, but I'll try and circulate that stuff by email in the next little while. Hope that helps. I'll turn it back to Nat. VE3TLY.
Well, thanks very much, Dave. Well, perhaps I should check for check-ins one more time before we head over to VE2CRA. Are there any other check-ins for this evening's event? Please call now.
VA3 DNS.
Victor Alpha 3, station ending in NS. Could you please give your call sign one more time?
Victor Alpha 3, Bravo, November, Sierra.
Echo 3, Golf Victor India, Sydney, and a Merry Christmas, everyone.
Well, thank you very much, Victor Alpha 3, Bravo, November, Sierra, and V3TVI Sydney. Thank you very much. Well, I guess we'll head over to VE2CRA for more info. Go ahead, Glenn. This is VE2DJ.
Very much, Tyler. But before I give my little bit of information, I'd also like to echo Greg's comments, thanking Dave VE3TLY for the work he's done in organizing not just the event this year, but for the last 7. I think this was the 8th year that we've operated from the Deacon Bunker, sometimes as VA3RAC in this contest, and this year and the last few years as VE3CWN for the Cold War Museum. My story is short, but it might be of interest to other people on the net. Many of you will know that there are a number of radio amateurs across Ottawa who are building in effect, what's an amateur radio internet type network operating just below the publicly available, no license required part of the spectrum. So it's at 2.4 gigahertz, but it's a couple of channels below what people use for their home internet. And Sunday, after being involved at the Deacon Bunker all day Saturday, a couple of people showed up to help me put an installation up on a mast that I have on the roof of my house in Alta Vista. And I became, I guess, the southernmost node in the or link in the broadband Hamnet, which has people reaching out as far as Canada and across the river from Canada, and then to the east where it's gradually building as well out past Saint Laurent. The center is the node that's on the YMCA in downtown Ottawa. So just to let people know I'm connected. I put up a couple of antennas, one to connect with the system at the YMCA, and another one that's pointing towards the south, further south from me here. I know there are other people who are experimenting. Quite a few people have the equipment at home and are waiting for a chance when they can find someone within range that they can join to. But it's quite exciting being able to have what in effect is our own internet type system with chat and email and the ability to exchange files, all those sorts of things on a system that doesn't use the regular internet and really is open only to radio amateurs. So that's my bit of information for today. Back to you, Tyler. VE3TLY, VE3XRA.
XRA, VA3DGN. Thanks, Glenn. Yes, the broadband Hamnet is a very interesting little toy. I myself had a node for a little while. They switched all the frequencies around, so I am about to rejoin that network once I find a little bit of free time. They also operate nodes in the 5 gigahertz range as well to try and get down interference. Anyway, I figure I should probably check now and see if anybody has any stuff they want to sell. If they want to sell anything, please give your call sign now.
This is the VE3ORF repeater system.
Friggin' idiots are out of
This is VE3TLY. Nothing to sell, but I do have a recheck. I normally like to come up with a little question kind of thing. And it was very interesting going and helping out at the Deep Bunker for the Rack Winter Contest. And one of the things that I always find very interesting is where you see members of the public coming up, and of course they see these crazy people there on a weekend and playing ham radio, and of course they're generally have puzzled looks on their faces. And I always look upon that as a nice opportunity to sort of get a few words in to sort of say why I think this hobby is so cool. And generally, you don't have a long time to sort of.
I'll probably get the blame for that too.
So you generally only have a minute or two to say a few key points about it. One of the things I find it's interesting. You ask people what they're interested in when you talk about ham radio. What interests you in the hobby? I find the public service aspect of things very interesting. So that generally ends up being the thing I start with when I talk to the general public. So I guess my question this evening is, let's say you only had a minute to talk to somebody. What ends up being the thing you would like to showcase about ham radio? What interests you the most? I guess we'll start with ours, go down the list, and then come back to Dave. So turn it over to VA3BIT.
VE3TLY and the group VA3BIT now mobile. Just to let you know, just before you came in with that, VE3TLY had a recheck. But my answer to your question, I guess, would be I would generally bring up public radio as well, but to try to engage their interest for perhaps more than 1 minute, I would ask them what they know about amateur radio or if they've heard about it before. Over.
Well, yes, that certainly is a worthwhile thing to do, and certainly a good way to engage them. If you start a little bit over their heads, maybe it's not as valuable. Well, let's see if there's any more check-ins for this evening's net before we go on. Are there any other check-ins? Please call now. VE3TLY with a recheck. VE3 ahead, Dave.
Yeah, hi again, Tyler. I just put some numbers together in response to the question that was raised a few minutes ago about the results of the contest. The QSO count, the counts are as follows. On phone, we had 528 QSOs, and on CW, 399 for a grand total of 927 QSOs. And the most active band for us was 20 meters with about 389 QSOs, followed by 40 meters with 243. And that goes down from there. So just thought I'd throw those numbers out for people's enjoyment. Back to net from VE2CRA.
Well, thanks very much, Dave, for the numbers. Does anyone have any questions before we go down the list again? Nothing heard. VA3HWA, this is VA3DGN. Go ahead with your answer about amateur radio. V3SFK, VA3DGN. I didn't copy that. Were you able to relay for us, please?
No, sorry, nothing on the input here. VE3SFK.
No worries. We'll keep going down the list, and maybe we'll try HWA again in a little bit. V3PNO, VA3DGN. Go ahead, George, with your amateur radio showcase type thing.
I'm not quite able to say. I had to leave the shack for a few minutes, and I obviously missed the question. What showcase type of thing am I supposed to talk about?
Oh, sorry about that, George. Yeah, basically I was explaining how generally when one is operating amateur radio, like at a park or say in a museum or that kind of thing, and you have people coming up and asking you questions about, you know, what you're doing, and you basically only have, say, a minute to sort of say what you like about amateur radio or what things you think are good things to mention in the short little brochure type form. Basically a short little blurb that you have to talk to the people. What sort of things do you generally like to share with them? And as I said, I gave the example of helping out at sort of public service type events like rallies and marathons and that sort of thing. So if you had any interesting things that you like to sort of share with people when they ask you, you know, why you're interested in amateur radio or what's it all about?
Wow. That's not a question. That's a paragraph for a book. Usually you try to explain to them the equipment that they saw you using. That seemed to be the easiest subject to get into. They'd see you either operating a rig or you had something in your car or you had this little box in your hand and you were talking to nobody, and people would want to know who you were talking to, and you could explain, and then it was very easy to kind of exaggerate it more and more and tell them that you didn't just talk to people on the other side of the town, but you could talk to people all over the world, and that usually got their interest and that type of thing. So I think probably, and that doesn't work anymore, you know. That's what I used to do. Now you don't have that because everybody is talking to everybody all over the world on their little black box that they carry in their pocket. But when I first got into amateur radio and my early years, having a mobile in the car or walking around with any kind of a hand-operated rig, or sitting at a bench out in the middle of the park with this stuff, talking into a little black box. That's usually how I got expanded. Go ahead.
Well, thanks very much, George. Yes, it's certainly difficult to summarize the hobby. I basically was kind of thinking that, if you only had one thing to share with them and you only had a minute to do it in, what would be the first thing you might bring up? Anyway, let's go over to VE2CRA. This is VE2CRA. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, what interests me, and I think I try to convey my enthusiasm for in general, is the fact that you can get from here to there without a whole lot of infrastructure. There's a box at this end, and there's a box at that end, and there's no telephone company, no cable company, no satellites, no nothing but the ionosphere between you and them, and you can carry on a perfectly good conversation. The other part of it, of course, is the experimental aspects of it. You've got an idea you want to try out, well, here's a piece of spectrum and a loose enough regulatory system that chances are pretty good you can try it out. So those are numbers 1 and 2 on my list of things that I talk about when people say, hey, what's that?
There they go again.
Well, thank you, Mike. Yes, that's certainly one of the appealing aspects. Well, there's many appealing aspects of the hobby, but yes, like the broadband hamnet, being able to unzip your duffel bag and take a few little boxes out and set them up and have a mini internet type network set up in a field is a kind of interesting thing. Anyway, let's go over to Greg, VE2CRA, VE2CRA. Go ahead, Greg. I guess Greg stepped out for a little bit. Why don't we try Tim, VA3PYC. Go ahead, Tim.
I think Greg was just wise enough not to try to answer this question. What a question.
Sorry about the audio, people. Some people's radio is better than others.
That I am. I've never found any answer I've given really very consistent for most people, whether it be from the prepper end of things, saying, think about all the major storms you've heard about and how people manage to communicate. So that's one thing that sometimes gets people interested when all else fails sort of approach. But I guess years ago I was asked to give a talk to high school students, and I brought in my grandfather's radio, a big wood box full of and from our coding school. And I walked around the gymnasium and I asked the students if it was new or old technology, and they all agreed it was old. I said, then you all must understand how it works then. And I think that's something that, I've explained to most people is that the world's full of radios. We're saying, everybody can talk to anybody around the world, and there's a radio antenna and everything. But do you have any clue about how it works? This hobby gets to work at figuring that out. That's
Well, thanks very much, Tim, for that. Why don't we try and see if there's any more check-ins before we head over to John? So, are there any more check-ins for this evening's Capital City Net? Please call now.
Let me see.
Victor Echo 3 Zulu Romeo Kilo.
Oh, thank you very much, VE2CRA. If you hadn't heard the question for this evening, it's if you had to pick one thing that you shared with someone who wasn't in amateur radio that sort of exhibits some of the best, most fun things that you find in the hobby, what might that one thing be? If you just had to share it, in the quickest possible way, if you happen to meet someone say in the museum or in the park. So that's the question for this evening, and I think the next person on the list is VE2CRA. Go ahead, John, please.
Yeah, to answer your question, what I'm most interested in is the public service aspect. And I've come quite in a few people, in a good number of people who realize that cellular phones do not work when there is power failure or disaster. It's ham radio that works. And I've heard many of them say that they would like to get into the hobby because of that. And one other interesting aspect that I've found is I don't know what they call it. It's some kind of tunneling that occurs in exceptional weather conditions. I had one of these experiences. I'd like to talk about it. You answered at a very weak station on the repeater, and all of a sudden, there I was in Mount Tabor, Virginia. No, Vermont. And that on a local repeater, ZRR. We had 20 minutes USO, and it was very first class. That's most interesting what can happen on the airway when you have exceptional weather. Over.
Well, thank you very much for that, Jean. Yes, it is certainly very interesting. It's always funny to watch people's expressions when you remind them that their cell phone has a radio in it, and their computer also. So it's sometimes interesting. And yes, it is always neat to see propagation and hear from really remote stations. Anyway, we should turn it over to VA3BNS. This is VA3DGN. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you very much. What I would tell people about ham radio is it's the original social networking. Just monitoring, listening in, and enjoying the net. VA3 BNS.
Fabulous. Yes, it most certainly ends up being a very social thing, and something I wish I had a little bit more time for, but there's always time. Anyway, let's turn over to VE3GPI. Go ahead, Sydney.
Good evening, everybody. I go back a long way to license in the UK in 1971 and Canada in 1973. So, but I don't go back as far as George VCBNO there. I certainly don't have his expertise, but I do concur with what he says. There's a lot of things have changed. I can remember in the 70s when the VE2CRA was the only repeater in town. The only other repeater was VTSGP. And everybody was on V2CRA, and it was everybody who had 2 meters. That is, I think it used to be called the intercom. Well, a lot of changes since. And in those days, if you had mobile, you could press people in your car. Oh boy, I'm on the 417 and I can talk to this one and that one type of thing. Long before the days of cell phones. So it's not as easy to impress people now. But it's still very interesting. And I haven't got into this shop for years because of antennas here outside. And people see antennas, well, the old Tennessee Valley Indians TVI problem, whether or not you're the cause of it. But in any event, and also the internet, I think, it's helped amateur radio in some ways, and in other ways it hasn't. For example, my eldest son, my daughter-in-law's from Brazil, and my eldest son and family are in Brazil at the minute. And I'm able to talk to him on webcam on Skype there, and he's on the other side of the equator, picture and everything. So how do you impress somebody with slow scan TV? If you're trying to do the same thing there, they can do it already on Skype for free, computer to computer. Anyway, that's about it really from me, VCGVI, back to net.
V3GVI, VA3DGN. Yes, it certainly is a bit of a challenge to perhaps get the point across that there is still this interesting hobby. But actually, I had somebody I know had put it to me basically, why would you ride a bike when you can drive a car? And that was sort of the suggestion. Why would you use radio when you have a cell phone? And there is certainly an art to a lot of this stuff, even if you're just building. So I think there's still a lot to discuss. At any rate, let's go to VE2CRA, and then we'll go back to TLY afterwards. So VE2CRA, go ahead with your little summary, please.
Thanks, Tyler. Evening, everyone on net. You're looking for the elevator sales pitch, and I'm not sure I have a very good one. I'm a fan of building things, and in my experience, that causes most people's eyes to glaze over. I'm probably not a good person to talk sales pitch for you. Anyway, VE2CRA.
Well, you say that, but of course, lots of people appreciate well-built stuff, and particularly if it's got lots of blinky lights on it, and maybe it makes funny noises. It's probably still applicable. Anyway, let's go to VE2CRA. Hi, Tyler. So I've been casting 1 year on the radio, and the rest of my attention has been putting into gathering numbers and sorting out all the results of the contest. I've only been sort of half listening to what's been going on here. What do I tell people about amateur radio? I guess a lot of the things which have already been mentioned, so I won't bother repeating that. But I'll mention that one term I often use is it's kind of like a sandbox for those people interested in the technology of radio and electronics. It really is an area where you can just go from toy to toy to toy, and it's just endless interesting challenges and new things to learn in amateur radio. It never ceases to amaze me, even when if you consider that it began many, many years ago when I was very young. It still goes on. And I think the other thing that I can probably add to the pile here is that it's certainly given me an opportunity to meet a lot of very interesting people and many very talented people as well that I have to admit I've learned an awful lot from. So that continues to go on, and I continue to really appreciate it and enjoy it all. So that's what I'll add to the list. So back to Ned from VE2CRA.
XRA, recheck.
Go ahead, VE2CRA.
Not sure if you were. Sorry there. Okay, that should. Sorry, I'm not sure. I'm sure they have the monitors turned off. Must have some other speaker here. A couple of comments on your question. I'm not sure if you were going to come around to me because I thought I had been a little earlier in the list. But I think that well, first off, in terms of what we're trying to do, we're not going to convince everyone. And, so I don't think you should be discouraged about that. Right now we have maybe 1 in 500 Canadians who's a ham. Maybe there's double that number that's possible, but a lot of people won't find it's for them. So I think you think about a short pitch really aimed at the kind of people who are likely to be interested. And the main point seemed to me to be what Tim and a couple of things that Tim and Mike said, and they were also the way the video that we saw at the last OARC that the Radio Society of Great Britain used, which was aimed mostly at younger people who, as George has said, some of the thrills of being able to talk to people around the world you can get in other ways these days, and it wasn't that easy decades ago. But what's unique about amateur radio is that you understand how you're doing, and you learn. It's not that hard. People with a little bit of work can understand and use technology that allows them to talk across the city and around the world. And then the other thing that Mike had said, and lots of other people have said that's related to that in fact with very simple equipment, you can talk across the city or across the world. And those two things, I think, are a part of the attraction, and they're what makes it possible for being able to make a real contribution with things like the social services or working in an emergency. If you know how to put up an antenna and you've got a fairly simple radio and a battery for a power supply, you can get the word out when everything else is down. So I think a lot of it starts with those two, but that's what I'd build into a kind of an elevator pitch. Back to Tyler, the VE2DGN, and sorry I scrambled your call the last time, VE2XRA.
you were definitely next on the list, and yes, those are all good points. One thing I'm always interested in is there are always historical aspects of radio and that type of communication, and also it ends up being sort of a lifelong learning. And these comments don't necessarily need to be to convince them to get their amateur radio license, but basically to say, don't worry, I'm okay, I'm having fun, and basically it's just sort of a summary for them, so they have a little bit of context for stuff like if they see you operating a contest. So that was basically sort of the idea of their question. And yes, I do realize it is a big question, but it's perhaps a little better than just asking what your favorite movie is. Anyway, if there's any other check-ins for this evening's Capital City Net, here's your last chance. Call now, please.
Check.
PYC recheck.
Well, thank you. Heard VE3NPO, VA3BIT recheck, and VA3PYC recheck. Let's go with Roger, VE3NPO. Go ahead, please.
Well, good evening there, people. I guess I've been doing a lot of things there, and I guess I got late, but I've been here listening to you guys there talking to Glenn, and anyhow, the other day I was on the pothole net, and it was fun. They were talking, but I wasn't there too long. I came at the end of the net, and I listened to them guys. They're talking for a while. The same thing happened here tonight there. I guess I got a phone call. I got off the phone maybe at 10 after 8, so anyhow, that's just the way it is, I guess. So nothing new to add at this end there. So I'll wish everybody a good evening, and Merry Christmas to all the people celebrating this event there. So back to net, V3 and Bill.
Well, thank you very much, Roger, and happy holidays to you as well, and Happy New Year. Let's go over to Arthur, VA3BIT. Go ahead, please.
VA3DGN and the group VA3BIT. I just wanted to say, I find it conducive to a conversation to ask people if they have heard about ham radio before, and quite often the answer is yes. Either they had a friend when they're growing up, or a grandfather, or a parents, or something like that. And usually they have this idea that amateur radio is basically shortwave talking around the world. And the conversation can get quite interesting when you explain that it's a lot more than that. And there's a lot more facets to it, and digital communications, and et cetera, So, the conversation can go on for a long period of time, actually, not a lot more than 1 minute, that's for sure. Anyways, that was my point number one. Point number two was I was going to ask you or VE2CRA if you could very quickly detail the transmitter or the receiver that you're using for broadband, because I'd like to get into it. I did get an antenna, that is, I got a dish, and then I realized the dish would probably be inappropriate as it would bring attention to me in my apartment building, and probably better if I use beam antenna for I believe 2.4 gigahertz, maybe 5 gigahertz. I don't know if it'll work for 5, but 2.4 anyways. And anyway, so I think about the beam antenna, the transceivers, and obviously I guess I probably have enough computers. So over.
VE3XRA, VA3DGN. Arthur had a few questions, and I can certainly fill in some details afterwards if you want. Nothing heard. Well, Arthur, actually, maybe what I'll do is I'll just chat with you about that after the net, and anyone interested can stick around. Anyway, let's go over for Tim's recheck. VA3PYZ, VA3DGN. Go ahead, please.
Thanks, Tyler. I was just struck when you're talking about people's reactions to you. Said something tongue-in-cheek, like, I'm okay. And it was reminding me of a recent Cam Nation episode recorded in West, talking about how important a carrier license, quickly be able to explain to authorities that you're a ham radio operator, what you're actually doing, not a terrorist of some sort. So maybe the citizen will be in the same position, not just held with a little bit of curiosity, but with some suspicion. VE2CRA back to net control.
Yes, certainly an interesting point. I mean, if you've got a whole bunch of radio gear strapped to you and you wander around and you're just talking about the weather, it certainly makes things look a little bit interesting. And as everyone else was pointing out, it is very much a social thing. So, there's always stuff to be done there. There's more work to be done. At any rate, if there's any other stations that want to have their last little chance for a chat to say something about that before we close up the net, please call now. Nothing heard. Well, I would like to thank everyone for joining this evening's net, and sorry for the poorly chosen question. I didn't mean it to go on so long, but at any rate, I'd like to wish everyone happy holidays, and if I don't hear from you, Happy New Year as well. And I believe there's one more net this year. VE2CRA, if I'm not mistaken. At any rate, we will be turning the repeater over to regular amateur use, and thank you everyone. This is VE2CRA. VE2CRA, VE2CRA.
VE2CRA, VE2CRA, go ahead.
Yes, Arthur, you mentioned you were interested in acquiring some equipment for broadband hamnet. Typically, if you're trying to get a highly directional antenna, the 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz parabolic dish antenna basically looks like a grill type antenna with a feed point. Those used to be obtainable from Best Buy and a few other places, and I think they were around $50 Canadian. Those were probably a good choice if you need something highly directional. If you don't, and you just want to use an envelope, there are all sorts of choices for that. You can use a collinear or whatever. And certainly the transceiver may just be whatever you already have in your laptop. Lots of people get USB dongle, USB Wi-Fi adapters, and that's certainly an option as well. Back to you.
Oh, okay. For some reason I thought there was a separate transceiver for 2.4 gigahertz, but you're just saying that it's a Wi-Fi, I guess it's a Wi-Fi adapter, obviously very low power, but a regular router or Wi-Fi adapter will do over.
Yes, it is actually possible to play on the broadband hamnet with any standard Wi-Fi adapter. Typically, for example, the 2.4 gigahertz, if you're on channel 1, you are playing in an allocation that is eligible for you to play in. If you're just using low power, there's no concern if you're within the limits of the ISM. If you're upping the power a little bit, as long as you're on channel 1, you're okay. Some adapters actually allow you to trick the device into going to, say, channel 0 or channel -1. And those devices are very specialized hardware, and you typically need to be buying